Island of Whispers. The Zodiac sliced through the pre-dawn chop, spitting saltwater onto the SEAL team huddled inside. Petty Officer Reyes shivered, pulling his watch cap lower. "Beautiful, ain't it?" he muttered, sarcasm dripping from his voice. Lieutenant Hayes, ever the optimist, clapped him on the shoulder. "Embrace the suck, Reyes. This is why we do what we do." The island loomed, a dark silhouette against the bruised dawn sky. It was just a speck of rock and scrub, barely visible on any map, the perfect place for their simulated hostage rescue exercise. As they neared the shore, a sudden gust of wind tore at their faces, carrying the scent of brine and something else, something wilder. By mid-morning, the exercise was well underway. 2 teams had infiltrated the mock enemy compound, while Reyes' team provided overwatch. Hayes, perched atop a craggy outcrop, scanned the horizon through his binoculars. The sky, once a pale gray, had transformed into a swirling mass of charcoal. "Looks like we're in for a blow," he said into his comm. Static crackled in response. "Command, do you copy?" Silence. He tried again, adjusting the frequency. Nothing. The storm hit with the force of a freight train. Rain lashed down in sheets, turning the rocky ground into a muddy swamp. The wind howled like a banshee, ripping at their gear. Visibility was near zero. Hayes struggled to keep his footing, the radio clutched tight in his hand. "This is Sierra Echo Alpha Lima team. We are experiencing extreme weather conditions. Request immediate extraction." More static. He swore under his breath. Reyes, soaked to the bone and shivering uncontrollably, crawled towards Hayes. "Sir, the comms are dead. We're cut off." Hayes knew what this meant. The island, already isolated, was now a death trap. He raised his voice above the roar of the storm. "Everyone, huddle up. We need to find some kind of shelter. And Reyes, keep trying the radio. Someone has to hear us." He looked at his team, their faces grim in the driving rain. The training exercise was over. This was a fight for survival. He keyed the radio again, shouting into the void. "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is Sierra Echo Alpha Lima team. We are stranded on an island, requesting immediate assistance. Our lives are in danger," only the howling wind answered. The silent SOS. The storm clawed at their exposed position. Rain lashed down, each drop a tiny hammer blow. Lieutenant Daniels wrestled with the SATCOM radio, his fingers numb. "Arlington, this is SEAL Team 6, do you read? We are taking heavy fire, repeat, heavy fire. Request immediate extraction." Static answered him. He tried again, his voice straining above the wind's howl. "Mayday, Mayday. Position, compromised. Need immediate air support." He slammed the transmit button, frustration mounting. Nothing but the hiss and crackle of atmospheric interference. Back at Arlington National Cemetery, inside the Tomb Guard headquarters, Sergeant Major Reynolds frowned at the rows of silent communication consoles. A technician, face pale, approached him. "Sir, we've got a complete comms blackout. All frequencies. It's unprecedented. Almost feels deliberate." Reynolds, a man whose face rarely betrayed emotion, felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Run diagnostics. Everything. Now." The technician scurried away, the silence amplifying the urgency of the moment. He felt a foreboding he hadn't experienced since his days in Fallujah. Daniels swore under his breath. "Damn it. Radio's fried." Miller, the team's comms expert, shook his head, rain plastering his hair to his forehead. "It's not the radio, Lieutenant. It's the signal. It's not getting through. Something's blocking us." He fiddled with the equipment, a growing sense of dread in his eyes. The enemy fire intensified, tearing chunks out of the already battered landscape. Explosions rocked the ground. Daniels knew their window was closing fast. He looked at his men, their faces grim, illuminated by the flashes of gunfire. He saw the understanding in their eyes. They were alone. "All right," he said, his voice calm despite the turmoil within. "Plan B. We hold this position. Make them pay for every inch." He gripped his rifle, the cold steel a familiar comfort. Hope, a fragile ember, still flickered, but the reality of their situation was a cold, hard truth. Their SOS had gone unanswered. The Guardian's watch. The click of Maya's heels against the marble plaza echoed, a stark counterpoint to the hushed reverence that clung to Arlington National Cemetery. Each step was precise, measured, a ritual etched into her muscle memory. She wasn't just walking, she was a living embodiment of respect, a sentinel against the relentless march of time. Her dark eyes scanned the crowd, a silent inventory of faces, assessing intentions. Most were tourists, their cameras clicking like nervous insects, but Maya saw more than just snapshots being taken. She saw the quiet grief of a woman clutching a faded photograph, the restless energy of a young boy struggling to understand the solemnity, the barely concealed disdain of a man who clearly believed this display was performative. Sergeant Maya Rodriguez wasn't born to this. Her childhood was spent navigating the bustling streets of Chicago, a world away from manicured lawns and somber granite. It was the Marines that molded her, honed her natural instincts into razor-sharp awareness. Years of grueling training, deployments to forgotten corners of the globe, had forged a quiet steel within her. She volunteered for this duty, drawn to the unyielding discipline, the unwavering commitment to honor. The weight of the M14 rifle felt familiar in her gloved hands. More than a weapon, it was an extension of herself, a symbol of the sacrifice she guarded. The sun glinted off the polished barrel as she executed the intricate movements of the changing of the guard ceremony. A crisp salute, a precise about-face, each action a testament to dedication. As she began her watch, a flicker of movement at the edge of the tree line caught her attention. A shadow, too swift, too deliberate to be a casual passerby. Her senses sharpened. The air itself seemed to vibrate with a low hum. The scent of freshly cut grass mingled with something else, something acrid and unfamiliar. Maya's gaze narrowed, focusing on the anomaly. It wasn't the grief of a nation she sensed now, but something sharper, something dangerous. Whispers in the static. The air shimmered above the marble, a heat haze despite the October chill. Maya squinted, adjusting her stance, the M14 suddenly heavy in her hands. It wasn't the usual visual distortion from the midday sun, this felt different. Like looking through rippled glass, the eternal flame wavered, its golden light fractured into a dozen dancing fragments. She licked her lips, the metallic tang of fear rising in her throat. 3 weeks into her tour as sergeant of the guard, and she'd thought she'd seen it all, fainting tourists, misplaced reverence, the occasional crackpot attempting to breach the perimeter. This, though, was new. Unsettling. A prickling sensation crawled across the back of her neck. The rhythmic cadence of her boots echoed strangely, almost swallowed by the oppressive silence that had descended on the plaza. Even the usual murmurs of the crowd seemed muted, distant. It was as if the world had turned down its volume, leaving only a high-pitched whine in its wake, whispers in the static. Sergeant Miller's words echoed in her mind, "Trust your gut, Rodriguez. It's the only compass you have out here." Her gut screamed. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. The relief commander, Lieutenant Davies, was due for his routine check-in in 15 minutes. Maya considered breaking protocol, radioing him now. But what could she say? "Sir, the air looks funny." He'd think she was losing it. No. She'd investigate first. A quick sweep of the perimeter, a check of the security feeds. Just to be sure. With a barely perceptible nod to Private Henderson, positioned at the north end of the plaza, Maya initiated a subtle hand signal, "Stand by." Henderson's answering flicker of acknowledgement was almost imperceptible, but Maya saw it. Good. He was on alert too. She moved, her boots a precise metronome against the stone, her senses heightened, straining to catch any anomaly, any clue in the deceptive stillness. The weight of the M14 felt less like a burden now, more like a promise. Echoes of distress. The rhythmic click of Maya's boots against the marble, the crisp salute, the mournful notes of the bugle, the changing of the guard played out with practiced precision. But today, the solemn ritual felt like a thin veil over a rising unease. The silence afterward was heavy, pressing down on her. She knew something was wrong, a gut feeling that wouldn't dissipate. Back in the guardhouse, she bypassed the debriefing and headed straight for the comms station. Sergeant Miller looked up, surprised. "Everything all right, Rodriguez?" "Just a feeling," she muttered, already pulling out archived communication logs. Days blurred into weeks as she scanned transcripts, filtered by low-priority, fringe frequencies. Most were static, stray signals, background noise. Then, a blip. Buried beneath layers of interference, a faint, almost subliminal pulse. She isolated it, ran it through a series of filters, stripping away the noise. A fragmented distress signal emerged, garbled and weak, but undeniably there. Coordinates flickered, then died. A voice, choked with static, uttering a single word, "Mayday." Maya's breath hitched. The signal was old, weeks old, possibly months. But the rawness of the desperation cut through time. Miller, drawn by the intensity radiating from Maya, leaned closer. "What is it?" "SOS, she said, her voice tight. "Faint, but definitely there. Someone's in trouble, Miller." Or was. The coordinates were incomplete, useless on their own. But the signal. The sheer desperation in that single word. It clawed at her. She knew it in her bones. This wasn't a drill. This was real. Walls of doubt. Maya's gut twisted as she stood before Admiral Harding's imposing desk. The scent of old leather and something vaguely metallic hung in the air. She laid out the reconstructed signal fragments. "Sir, I believe this is a distress call. Possibly from a SEAL team." Harding leaned back, his expression unreadable. "Rodriguez, you're telling me you deciphered a garbled transmission no one else picked up, and you're certain it's a genuine SOS?" His voice was a low rumble, devoid of warmth. "With all due respect, petty officer, we rely on verifiable data, not intuition." "It's not just intuition, sir." The rhythmic pulse repeats a known SEAL emergency frequency, masked beneath layers of static. The degradation patterns suggest hostile jamming, possibly. Or extreme distance. She tapped a fragment. "This snippet, it's consistent with their underwater comms protocol, encrypted but broken." He steepled his fingers. "And you bypass standard channels to bring this directly to me?" "Petty officer, protocol exists for a reason. Have you considered the possibility of a training exercise gone awry? Or, frankly, A simple equipment malfunction causing bleed through. I considered everything, sir. But the urgency, and the way the signal cuts off. I can't ignore the possibility that lives are at stake. She met his gaze, refusing to back down. Bureaucracy is slow, Admiral. If it's real, every second counts. Her hands were clammy, yet she gripped the edge of his desk, grounding herself. Harding's eyes, the color of a stormy sea, narrowed. Petty officer, your zeal is admirable. But I can't authorize a full-scale search based on fragmented static and a feeling. I'll task a team to analyze your findings, run a diagnostic on the comm systems. If they corroborate your data, then we'll talk. But until then... He gestured to the door. Dismissed. Doubt not, Maya. She saluted crisply and turned, the weight of unanswered pleas heavy on her shoulders. The walls felt like they were closing in. But as she reached the door, a resolve hardened within her. She wouldn't let protocol barrier cry for help. There had to be another way. Decoding the signal. Maya found Ben Carter hunched over a bank of monitors in the comms room, a halo of blue light illuminating his perpetually surprised expression. Carter, I need your help. He nearly jumped out of his skin, sending a cascade of empty coffee cups clattering to the floor. Petty Officer Rodriguez. Didn't see you there. What's up? She ignored the mess. I need you to run some signal processing. Fast. She slid the encrypted file across the console. Think you can clarify this? Ben's eyes widened as he scanned the file. Distress signal. This is choppy. What is it? I think it's coordinates. SEAL team. Stranded. But it's garbled. Doubts not at her. What if she was wrong? Men's lives might depend on this. He whistled, already typing furiously. All right, let's see what we can do. This encryption's old school, but the signal's weak. Probably bounced off a few satellites before it got here. Give me 5. 5 minutes stretched into 10. Ben's fingers flew across the keyboard, lines of code scrolling across the screen like digital rain. The air crackled with the hum of the equipment. Maya watched, her jaw tight. Almost. Got it. Ben exclaimed, triumphantly. A map flickered onto the central monitor, a small blinking icon pinpointing a location deep in the Honduran rainforest. These coordinates. They're close to the border. Maya inhaled sharply. That's it. That has to be it. Relief washed over her, mixed with a renewed sense of urgency. Thanks, Carter. You just bought them some time. Ben grinned, oblivious to the enormity of the situation. Anytime, petty officer. Just try not to sneak up on me next time, okay? My heart can't take it. Against the storm. Admiral, with all due respect, Maya said, her voice echoing in the cavernous command center, we can't just sit here. The rain lashed against the panoramic window, mimicking the turmoil churning inside her. On the screen, the garbled distress signal mocked their inaction. Harding turned, his face a granite mask. Petty Officer Rodriguez, I appreciate your enthusiasm. But the storm is a Category 4. Launching a rescue now is suicide. Maya held up the tablet displaying her analysis. Sir, I filtered the noise, compensated for atmospheric distortion. These are the clarified coordinates. She tapped the screen, zooming in on a pinpoint in the churning ocean. They're clinging to a debris field, barely afloat. They won't last the hour. Harding crossed his arms, his gaze fixed on the raging storm outside. And what makes you so sure your calculations are correct? This is a maelstrom out there, petty officer, not a math problem. Because I used the tidal drift patterns from the last 7 years, cross-reference with the storm's trajectory and the initial signal burst. It's not a guarantee, sir, but it's the best chance they have. Maya's voice cracked with desperation. She spent the last 3 hours wrestling with the data, fueled by lukewarm coffee and a growing sense of dread. Harding remained silent for what felt like an eternity. The only sound was the relentless drumming of the rain. Then, he let out a heavy sigh, the air leaving his lungs like a deflating balloon. Damn it all. He strode to the communications console. Get me Air Command. Tell them to prep a Seahawk. Rodriguez, your riding point. You navigate. And petty officer? He turned back, his eyes holding a flicker of something Maya couldn't quite decipher. Don't you dare be wrong. Guardian Angel. The Sea King helicopter bucked violently as it fought its way through the tempest. Rain lashed against the cockpit glass, blurring the world into streaks of grey and white. Inside, Lieutenant Davies wrestled with the controls, his jaw tight. Beside him, the rescue specialist, Ramirez, checked his gear for the 10th time. Every flash of lightning illuminated the grim determination etched on his face. Back at command, Maya spoke into the headset, her voice calm and steady despite the frantic energy thrumming through her. Bearing 270, Lieutenant. Adjust altitude, you're drifting south. Copy that, Davies responded, his voice crackling with static. Visibility's near zero. We're relying on you, petty officer. Admiral Harding stood rigidly behind Ben Carter, his gaze fixed on the blips representing the helicopter and, hopefully, the SEAL team. He hadn't said a word since authorizing the rescue, but the set of his shoulders betrayed his anxiety. Almost there, Maya announced, her fingers flying across the console. I'm picking up weak thermal signatures. 300 meters, dead ahead. We have visual. Davies shouted, relief flooding his voice. They're huddled against the rocks, barely conscious. Commencing extraction. The next few minutes were a blur of coordinated chaos. Ramirez braved the storm to winch the SEALs aboard, one by one. Each lift was a struggle against the wind and waves, a testament to their training and sheer willpower. Finally, the last SEAL was secured. All personnel accounted for, Davies reported. Heading back to base. Maya exhaled slowly, the tension draining from her body. She watched the blade representing the Sea King turn and head towards safety, then straighten her uniform and return to her post at the tomb. The rain had stopped, and a sliver of moon peeked through the clouds, casting a ghostly glow on the white marble. She resumed her silent vigil, the weight of her duty settling back upon her shoulders, the heroic actions of the night known only to herself and a handful of others.